Welcome to the Dr. Donna podcast, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 113, International Women's Day. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
I'm Dr. Donna, and welcome to my podcast. And I've been talking about life on life's terms, and that's pretty apropos today. For those of you who don't know, these podcasts are taped in advance. And so, if you want to contact me, please, email me at healingyourfamilylegacy@gmail.com. And contact me. I also have a website, and there's a way to contact me there to make requests. Say you want to hear more about this, or you want to hear about this, or you want to comment on anything I've said, you can do that. Today, though, is, like I said, was apropos because, it's a taped show, and today, the actual day that I'm doing this tape, is International Women's Day. And so I'm going to talk about International Women's Day. And I think that is an important day. I think it's one of the most important days. And it's not just because I'm a woman. I actually know what it's like to be a woman. But I actually think about women as a group of people who have been oppressed in every culture, in every element of life, for as long as time, as we know, time has been. We have been oppressed for as long as history has, been known. Okay? And that means we're oppressed in every culture. We're oppressed in every race. We're oppressed everywhere. I think I'm going to say there are only a couple of cultures that do not oppress women. One is the Navajo culture. And, I think that there might be, now, I'm not sure of this, but there might be a few other cultures that are very small and peaceful. Because we aren't, it's like we aren't really fighters. After all, we give birth to human life. And when you give birth to human life and what you go through in order to do that, in order to raise that child to an adult, it's like you really don't want your kid going off to war. You really, even if you're full of patriotism and you think it's the only thing, or they have to, for some reason, that the world is, being, like in World War II. I think it could have been worse. It was pretty bad. But as a mother, even if you have patriotism, even if you think it's a good idea, you do not want your child to be killed. And, so those few cultures where women are actually viewed as valuable people, their value is that they're women, that they're born women, pretty peaceful, or have been. And so I want to talk about International Women's Day and what it means to me. Okay, because it means a lot of things to a lot of people. What it means to me is that if I could celebrate International Women's Day in any way I wanted, it would be that would be the day that I didn't have to worry about being attacked, being sexually assaulted, being ignored, being the brunt of people's jokes, that I would have equal rights, that I ran my own business. And it was interesting to me that my fees are my own. Okay? I made the decisions that I make and still make about my fees. And I base my fees and have, since I was probably in private practice after about 5 years, I decided I'm not getting paid enough for my level of education, the abilities that I have, the gifts that I have, the time and attention that I give. I'm not getting paid what the men in my profession get paid. So I started to set my own fees based on that. And so 50 years into being a therapist, I'm pretty wise, I'm pretty smart, I'm pretty educated, and I think that it's a privilege for people to see me as a therapist. They don't get that. You have to go far and wide to find somebody with that pedigree, let me tell you right now. And as I grew professionally, I checked around, and people aren't very happy or willing to talk about their fee structure, but I didn't mind saying what mine was based on. And so my fees now are based on what my male counterparts would be charging. But let me tell you, most of them have never had to work as hard as I have. They've never had to do the education that I've had. Most of them have not written a book about the work they've done. Most of them didn't give up as much as I had to give up in order to pursue my profession. Most of them had a lot of support. I had none. Okay? And so, if you're going to see me as a therapist, you've got a good mind, good experience, good education, some of the best. And so my fees are going to be based on that. Now, this has always been interesting to me. This is how we are taught to see other women. When people would come, when I was working full time, people would come in to see me. And, I would tell them what my fee was. And most of the men, and this was just baffling to me at first, but now it makes sense, is that most of the men, I would say, I'm trying to think if there was ever anybody, might have been one or two men who like raised their eyebrows and said, oh, okay, well, that's high. But I couldn't believe, but then they give me their credit card or write me a check or give me cash and say, here, and off we'd go. And that would be it for the rest of the time that I saw them in therapy. They'd come in, they'd say, here's my credit. Some of them said, here, would you please take the numbers off these credit cards so we don't have to do this every week? Sure. Right? I would say half of the women I saw as a therapist would say, oh, that's kind of, do you have a sliding scale? Could you give me could you could you charge me less? And, I know pretty much what these people were worth and what they made. And I always had at least one or two people, sometimes more, that were paying me a lot less. But it's like, you're an attorney. I know what you make. That's not going to work for me. Or, you're married to this gazillionaire. I'm sorry. That's just not going to, it's like, no, because women don't value each other. They don't hold other women in high esteem. And when we do, it threatens people. So it's a tough go being a woman. I want to tell you, we all know it. And for people who don't believe me, women in particular, like who say, oh no, I'm so happy. I've got a lovely husband and a lovely group of kids and I have good friends. And I say, good. That's really good. The question I would ask anybody is that if you had all of the options in your childhood and young adult life, if you had all the options that men your age have, is this what you would have chosen? It would have been all that you would have chosen. Then I say, good for you. But I also say, you have to think about that. I've had people say to me when I talk about this, well, you can't have it all. It's like, well, okay, when you can't have it all, what all are you talking about? That you can't have a job or a profession that brings you joy and happiness, that you can't have children, that you can't be married, okay? Like you can't go to church. It's like, what does all mean? Men have that. They can pursue the profession or the job that gives them joy if they want. If they don't want to, guess what? They don't have to. Some men, like my father, his pursuit was to have his own ranch. Now, my father, it's like he was kind of a dick in some ways, but he grew up on an Indian reservation out in the middle of, the border of Utah and Nevada. It's like his education, part of it was that he and his brothers burned down the school 3 times. So I don't think he was focused on education. Just my guess. And he did finish high school. But what he wanted to do is he wanted to be a rodeo cowboy and have a ranch. Cattle ranch. And he worked his ass off, excuse my language, in order to make that happen. And he married somebody who also wanted to be a rancher. I don't think she cared for his rodeo thing very much because you never knew from one minute to the next if he's going to have another head injury or come out of it alive. And it took a lot of money to even enter those rodeos. But here's the point, is that he was born into poverty, total abject poverty. They lived in a tent. All right. Does that sound familiar? On a reservation. But he was born with that kind of like it's like he lived in a world where everything said to him, go for your dreams. You deserve it. Now, he didn't think he just deserved it. He went for his dream. And, I kind of got some of that from him. I think that motivation, part of that was I grew up with this guy. I saw him do everything, give up what he needed to give up, including, good time, attention, energy with his kids. But he, I think that wasn't great, but he somehow got the message that it was his right, that he was entitled to pursue that at all costs. And he did. Most of us women did not grow up that way. Some are now, I think. I'm not sure about that, but I think some are. It's still, well, you're going to have children, aren't you? You're going to have a family, aren't you? It's like, how about you think about that? It's kind of important, I think, that, it's a good thing to have 1 or 2 children or 3 if you can, and to have a right to decide how you want to pursue a profession or a career, and that it's open to you as it is to your spouse. Now, what I was saying is that men have been doing this for years. They have children. They don't actually give birth to them, but they're there. So they have children. They have spouses. They have families, sometimes more than one. And they are, the expectation is that you'll do something in your life that you really want to do. And guess what? It can be anything. Anything. So on this International Women's Day, I look at where I came from. I think I was, it has kind of occurred to me over time that, I'm a little bit unique in that way because of my generation. And when I was in school, the only expectation that I was aware of, and it kind of pissed me off at the time even, was that I would grow up and be a wife and a mother. That was it. That was it. And I had a friend whose mother was a nurse, and I thought, well, she's really nice, and she's really, her kids love her, and I thought I couldn't quite work that out in my really young mind, but it was somebody that I ended up really admiring. And then there were teachers in my schools that were female, and I thought, well, they do that. Most of them have kids and families, and they seem to be fine. So, but that was way out of reach for me because of my socioeconomic status, for one. Being a female for another was like, well, that might be good for them, but isn't that interesting? So I grew up thinking that you could be a nurse or you could be a teacher. And the words I heard were, you could go to school and learn how to do that. Didn't know what that school was, but you can go to school and learn how to do that in case you needed to fall back on. And I'm using air quotes there. And I've told this story before, but it is so apropos. I got a bachelor's degree in psychology. I worked my way through that. I was not given anything in that. I worked very hard and took advantage of any opportunity I could. And then I got admitted to a master's in social work school, which is by itself, it's a pretty marketable degree without anything else going on. And I was so excited when I was admitted. And I saw one of my teachers from high school that I thought really supported me a lot. I mean, I really worked hard. I loved history and English when I was in high school. And he was a history teacher. I even took summer school so I could, take English, history in a really consolidated way. I loved it. And I thought he was a cheerleader of mine. And I saw him one day after I'd been admitted to the graduate program. And I said, hey, I got admitted to the MSW program at the University of Utah. And he looked down at me, because everyone does, because I'm a really short person. He looked down at me and he said, I wonder what young man's place you took. I was crushed. But, this is also, I don't know where I got this. I think it's from my dad, but it pissed me off royally. It gave me motivation. I thought, not only am I getting admitted, but I'm going to get through that program no matter what. And I did. But that was the attitude. It wasn't unique to him. I want women to know that get a dream that is yours, not something that is an expectation that everyone else has on you. Get a dream that is yours. pursue it. It may not and probably will not be easy. But then what gives you joy that's easy? And you can have it all. If you're not thinking in terms of, the biggest family, the millions of dollars, it's like having it all might mean that I do something that brings me joy. And part of that is being a mom. But you know what? Raising a small child to adulthood, it takes my situation, it took about 25 years. But that's only a fourth of my life. What about the rest of it? And what about when I'm not actively involved? What if I'm, actually the child going to school? I took 3 years off to be a mother to this small child and baby. But when he was 3, he was in preschool, and I started working half time again. And when he went off to school, I started working full time. And okay, so there wasn't a lot of time to travel and all those things, okay? And I couldn't go out and get drunk at night, which I was already sober anyway. But I thought, I'd think, wow, if I was going out getting drunk every night, there's no way I could do this. So what I want you to know is dream bigger. And what I want men to know is that, we're human beings. You don't have to threaten us. We're smaller anyway. By nature, we're not going to challenge you in any way that is physical. So you don't have to, threaten us. We might challenge you in education. I was really happy, and I don't know where this will go in the long run. I think it'll be a positive. I think it already is. But, it's like my son was never under the illusion that the girls he went to school with and the young women that he went to school with in college were anybody less or more than he. And he knew that they were as capable as he was, so he'd have to work very hard to do the things that he wanted to do, because all those young women and men were all competing in a friendly, positive way. They helped each other, the whole thing. But he was never under the illusion that, if he wanted to pursue a certain profession or a certain career, that, he was going to have that just because he was male. Now, I also want you to know that he understood what male privilege is. He knows, and he has said it out loud to me as an adult man. I know that I am a privileged white male, and I try not to take advantage of that. And he doesn't. He has probably changed more of his child's diapers than his wife. And that's just one thing. And why does he do it? Because it needs to be done. Not because he's not doing it for her. He's doing it because it needs to be done. It's a job. He signed up to be a parent. And he takes his day off on Friday so that he can spend a full day with his son. Not because he's doing it for her or anybody else. He does it because he understands that time, attention, and energy helps a child become a better and more healthy adult. And because he likes his little boy. He likes him a lot. And his wife takes off a day too, so that she can be there. And now that the little guy's old enough, he's going off to preschool. They still take those days off so they can spend time with him. That requires them to work very, very hard when they are at work. They don't hang, it's like you're not going to find them hanging out lounging at work. They work hard. But the thing is that they're on equal ground. There's no question about it. And I look at that, and it's kind of interesting. She is not afraid of him. So what I want is I want to live in a world without being afraid for my life just because I walk out the door. Just because I'm walking into a parking lot at night. I don't want to be afraid for my life. I've been afraid for my life most of my life. It's like when I don't go on hikes alone because it's too dangerous for women to hike in the mountains by themselves. Why? It's not because wild animals are going to get them. It's because they might run into a serial killer up there, or someone who sees the opportunity, some man who sees the opportunity to take advantage of a woman. That is not honorable. I heard a question to a young woman. I can't remember where, it's been a while. Asked her, what would you do different if there were not men on this planet? And by the way, I love men, so can we just get that over with? And she said, and I agree with her, I would go on a walk at night. That's what I wish for all women.
Thank you for listening to the Dr. Donna podcast here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Dr. Donna podcast is copyright 2023 Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.